Welcome to Kubernetes SIG Cloud Provider, Wednesday, May 8th, 2024. Let's see. I think we have a couple of topics here. I have not even taken a look yet. Go ahead and put your name on the list. And let's take a quick look and see if we have any issues to triage. Looks like we have one from the last few weeks. Failing test provider, the GCP provider maybe does not support instance groups. Do we know anything about this one?
I do not. But it sounds like probably we'd want to triage it at the GCP cloud provider, I guess.
I love how you say triage at the GCP cloud provider and like magic, Walter appears. Hello, Walter. We're talking about SIG cloud provider, GCP provider does not support instance groups.
Sorry, still coming up to speed.
It's okay. It's just funny because we were just looking at quick triage, the newest issue, and it turns out this person is claiming provider does not support instance groups since after the removal of in-tree provider. Interesting.
Wondering, I mean, they also cause. Okay.
So I'm just going to put a link to this one in the chat because it's sort of interesting. We can follow up on it later, but just want to bring that to your attention.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I think the tough part about triaging these test failures that are coming up per provider, like unless it's a test failure that's breaking across like multiple providers, or we can root cause it and determine it to be something that, is part of the core like cloud provider framework or something like that. We almost have to look at these and look to the experts on those individual like platforms as the first point of triage. And I think it makes it difficult, for us then as a group to say, okay, yeah, we're just going to assign this to someone because like, we don't know what their kind of queue looks like and everything. So I'm not sure the best way to resolve that when we're looking at these specific failures,
Yeah. I mean, obviously we could be approaching them from like the test grid side of things, et cetera, but let's see. Walter, do you want to take an action item of look at that one and see if it should be assigned to someone?
Yeah, I can do that. I know that I noticed Andrew is in the background being very quiet.
He is quiet. Maybe it's the conference room. I haven't heard anything from him, so I think the conference room doesn't have audio. That's my guess anyway.
Yeah, I just saw Andrew raise his hands into an X. So yeah.
Yeah. You get to just go with the sign language there. Riviera Rouge. I love it. Always fun when Andrew joins from a conference room. Okay.
I thought our standard tradition was that if you couldn't object, that we assigned everything to you.
Oh, well, you have the power of /assign, so go for it if you'd like to.
Amazing.
Okay. Let's get into Almiko, do you want to summarize? Obviously, I'm not going to log into Slack on this machine, but do you want to summarize the Slack thread?
Yeah, there was basically a discussion had come up in I think in the Contrabex or maybe the release channel about now that we've got the GCP code removed, and I think we merged the PR to the enhancement to move it to stable state, or at least it's in place now, that we should do another blog post to kind of bring together all the information about this change. I think there was also an interesting note statistically about the amount of code we pulled out of Kubernetes. And I know, Walter, you've been kind of geeked about this stuff in the past, but someone said it was like something over 1 million lines of code were removed over the course of this entire process, pulling all the cloud providers out. So like, I thought that was pretty cool. And yeah, they wanted to do a follow-up blog post where we bring together, the blog posts that we've done over the years about this progress, the kind of interview that we just did about it, and then the presentation that we gave at the last KubeCon about it. And that I don't know how much new writing is going to go into this blog post, but it sounded like maybe a collaboration between several different people, like, DIMS and us and some of the release folks as well. So that's kind of the main point. And I thought it sounded like a good idea. I'm happy to help out if anything's needed.
So a million lines sounds low, actually, but okay, that's fair.
They said over a million lines, if I remember.
Okay. But the other thing I would do on that one is might be worth taking a look at if we saw a bump down in the size, because I think there should be a corresponding bump down in the size of several of the binaries as well.
Great suggestion. We should highlight the binary size difference as well, because for everyone, but probably especially for our edge users and whatnot, they'll be really curious to hear that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
And the images too. Yeah. Related to the binary size, but
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if we could capture that stuff, that'd be really cool as well.
And I see Andrew does have the ability to speak when he wants.
Switch to my laptop.
Oh, he's keeping us guessing. Okay.
Just a couple notes on the blog post. I think over the years we've published like other blogs kind of leading up to this. So it'd be good to like reference the old blogs because they also have more like direct instructions on like, I think the 129 blog was very direct, saying like you have to change something. This is more of like wrapping up blog saying that we're done. But yeah, I think it's important that we're still continuing to point users to the actual like actionable things they need to do when they upgrade to 131, especially the users that opted out of the migration for 129.
Yeah, that was that conversation that was happening in Slack. They brought up some of the old links, like the blog post from 2019, and I think another one that had come out there. So yeah, like I forget the person's name, but they were, Caslin. She was bringing together all these links, that I guess theoretically will go into whatever we're putting out. I don't know if it sounded like there was going to be maybe like a Twitter thread and a LinkedIn post and a Mastodon thread and a blog post. So I don't know. It's going to be multimedia, I guess, is like the way it's going to come.
But yeah, if you want to look at that Slack thread in SIG Contribex comms, you can see which items she has in draft that she's planning on putting into the post. All right. Do we have anything else about the follow-up removal blog post?
The only thing I got to say is I think we're going to have to think quickly and hard about what like we want to talk about with our maintainer track for this fall. Because like we just talked about this at the previous one. I don't know if we want to I don't know if it would be kosher to like talk about it again, even though it's like a really big deal. But like I think it's something food for thought for a future meeting.
That is a good point. And while the call for maintainer track sessions is not open yet, I imagine that when the main CFP closes in early June, the maintainer track sessions will open, or the proposals will open. So do we have anybody who has on the horizon that they know they're going to be in Salt Lake City and they would like to present? I'm looking at our friends who have presented the least frequently or the least recently, if there is anyone. Possibly start thinking about that.
I know I'd be available again, but as you said, I just presented.
Well, I mean, sometimes we must do a maintainer session with those of us who are able to be there. But we'll think about what people want to have an opportunity for.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll be
We-
there for
yeah.
sure, but like I think I might be there. So, but you know, who knows?
I think there's a strong possibility, though always in motion is the future.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Anything else on this topic?
So one thing just in general, since we brought up one idea, I think the kind of the contrary, the mirror idea for this is the future. So, you know, someone mentioned this is sort of the past, and, you know, pat on the back, all great. But I think to some degree, it leaves the interesting question for the larger community of what is our role once this, you know, once the cloud provider, you know, extraction is done, what is SIG Cloud Provider's role?
Mhm. Yeah, excellent. And I know that we should probably put a link to the annual report that Almico just filed. Because he did put some items in there. Let's see if I can pull that up real quick. Or if you have it handy, I'm gonna drop it in the chat.
I mean, I don't, but I have opinions
I'll
about
find
this
it.
stuff for the future.
Yeah, please tell us what you're thinking and I'll get that link.
Well, I mean, I think like for me, one of the big topics I think that the SIG should take over or should get into is like the testing, you know, situation, because now like we've now removed a bunch of stuff from the testing, we've removed a bunch of the entry stuff, but I think we still need a solid solution so that we can interface with the, you know, all these people or all these, you know, user communities around the different providers. Like, how do we ensure that those are all having good testing and that there's some centralized way for us to understand when there's like, you know, systemic issues that might be affecting all cloud providers? Or like, can we, you know, what I would love to see is us like interface more with this credits program that the CNCF is doing so that we could start to say, okay, we have a pattern for how to do like a vendor specific CCM test. We've got a central set of tests that use interfaces to make it applicable to each different provider. And then now we can approach those providers and say, hey, look, if you want to participate in the credits program, we have a very easy way to set up this testing that immediately returns value to like your specific cloud provider pieces. And, you know, that might start with CCMs and CSI, but it could eventually balloon into other things like cluster API and, you know, who knows what else. So I think that's one of the topics that like we should take on for sure.
What do people think of that?
I think it's a great starting point. I think it is a natural follow-on to a lot of the work we've already been doing. So the other thing I would mention, and I think this is far less obviously correct, is there are rumblings in a few places about some how Kubernetes better controls clouds.
Controls?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there are, you know, Kubernetes. I mean, traditionally the way people have controlled clouds is through either cloud provider specific tooling in Google, like it's the G Cloud command, right? Or through Terraform. And there are now a bunch of products that sort of do Terraform-like functionality, but they do it from Kubernetes.
Okay.
And several cloud providers have mentioned the idea of wanting to open source that code, and in fact maybe even try to make it, you know, go from just being a workload on Kubernetes to being a more core aspect of Kubernetes. And if so, you know, would it make sense to be under a SIG? And so I noted in the background there's been a certain amount of SIG shopping for this stuff. And one of the frequently mentioned SIGs for this is actually SIG apps. But at some level, it sort of also seems to me that maybe SIG Cloud Provider might make sense.
I have not seen the proposal.
There
I must
hasn't
have.
been one. This is all
Oh,
backroom
fantastic.
conversations.
I
feel like
have been in.
Oh, go ahead.
ahead.
Sorry.
Well, I was going to say, I've been in a couple of these, figuring out where the working group should go and whether it should be a sub project or et cetera. I've been in a few of those, and it's always just a question of like figuring out where the needs can best be served and figuring out the best fit. So, I mean, I'm not categorically opposed, but I don't know if we have enough information to say that sounds super. What do you think, Almiko?
Oh, I was just going to toss more like fuel on the fire because I think SIG Cluster Lifecycle, since they own Cluster API right now, is probably like another really like another one of these things where it's like, yeah, that they probably also need to be in the mix somehow, you know?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, this is just generally this thing is, I have seen this thing going on in various conversations with various of the cloud providers, and it, you know, varying cloud providers have different opinions, I think, possibly based on how many representatives they have in a given SIG. But
Makes sense.
Yeah, it sounds interesting. I think there's also like the difference between maybe a sub-project of a specific SIG versus what Almiko was referring to, which I think would be more of a working group across SIGs. Is that what you were kind of referencing?
Yeah, maybe without really knowing it, but yeah, maybe this requires, yeah, if a working group is something that can span SIGs, yeah, but I thought a
Yeah.
working group had like a limited, you know, like they had
Well,
a goal they were trying to reach, and then the working group would be
yes.
over after that or something. Okay.
I mean, a working group can go on for some time, but you're right. It
Okay,
does
yeah.
need to have a specific goal.
We need like a
Um,
SIG of SIGs or something.
I mean,
yeah, I mean,
yeah.
interestingly enough, SIG Cloud Provider began as a working group.
Mhm. I was just revisiting that when I was pulling together stuff for the next topic. I went back and I read some vintage Andrew Kim issues and pull requests from 2018. It was very exciting. All about moving the working group, retiring the working group and making it a SIG. It was like, yep, very cool.
That's classy. I guess like,
Yeah, go ahead.
oh, being sensitive of our time and the fact that there's
Yes.
one more agenda item.
Oh, yes.
There's another, I think another topic that the SIG should get into after the extraction that I think is going to be a big thing is hybrid cloud functionality. So the notion of a cluster that could span multiple providers. One, you know, this is something that I've heard people talking about and people are interested in. And I know that, you know, it's something we might want to investigate the possibility of like, if you have a cluster that spans multiple clouds, like, you know, would we ever support something where people could run multiple CCMs, you know, in a cluster? So I think that's something that's, you know, bears investigation at the least.
Yeah, I know that that's of interest to some people in the cluster API space too, which maybe you've seen some of the same issues I've seen where people have brought that up.
Well, yeah, and
Looking for
more
ways to control
generally,
that.
you know, like we have you know, we have users who are interested in those type of patterns, you know, so it's something I hear from the community of, you know, there is an interest out there from users to do this. I'm not sure how big it is yet, but you know, maybe that's part of the investigation is kind of gauging, is this big enough to do something about, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
I definitely think, again, this is another one of those interesting bridging ones, right? Like
Yeah.
I understand why that should involve us, but I think that also probably needs to involve multi-cluster.
Yeah, absolutely. This would be kind of like we would need to kind of liaise with them because I think we know what we would need to do, but that's like you said, it's just one part of the picture, you know?
Well, I mean, if perhaps your SIG cloud provider is your Switzerland and gets to bring all of these SIGs together. to work on this exciting stuff. Who knows? All right. Anything more we want to put in this topic?
Those are my two big ones.
Okay, fantastic. I wanted to kind of let everyone know I did put the pull request in and have a bunch of work to do on the checklist for the leadership change, which is not a surprise to anyone. We've talked about this numerous times. I did have one action item for this. I was looking to see if Walter wanted to add anything to the draft of the email I was going to send out. Did you get a chance to take a look at that, Walter?
No, I'm good.
You good? Yeah, okay. I wasn't sure if you wanted to add anything. I had shared a doc to you.
I'll double check. No, I'm happy.
Okay, fantastic. And this is just like the, we have our honored emeritus, Nick and Andrew. We have Almiko, also becoming tech lead, and then we will certainly continue to grow and expand that. And then, of course, Walter will stay as tech lead and I will stay as co-chair.
Yeah, while I do appreciate like the changes and the, I guess, vote of confidence from the community, I would like us to find a tech lead who's like, you know, probably doing more work than I am. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. And
Did we ever get anywhere with any of Nick's sort of handoffs?
I think I need more clarity about what we're talking
Like,
about.
I think the
here.
webhooks are stalled pretty much. Like we
Well,
had gotten the
wasn't quite-
enhancement to a good place, but
Sorry, I meant on the people side, not on the code side. Although that is a
Oh.
valid point. Thank you.
yeah, no, Kirthan, I don't know if he's here today or not, but yeah, Kirthan had been kind of taking over for Nick, I thought, and he had been coming to some of the meetings.
I mean, to be fair, like he came to several meetings and he shared some of the work he was doing on the webhook, and I think he asked for a few reviews, but then
Okay, maybe that's on us then.
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I mean,
I'll make a note to look back into that stuff too.
okay, yeah, I need to as well. But I'm not trying to throw Kirthan under bus by any means. More what I'm trying to say is that I think for our own good, it's pretty important that we stay engaged with Amazon. And I just want to make sure that we are working towards making sure that, you know, like it would be sort of strange for SIG Cloud Provider not to have a rep from Amazon. And I think we should be working towards keeping those sort of lines of communication or bridges working.
I mean, +1, absolutely. And I wasn't trying to cast any aspersions on Kirthan before. Like I think his work here has been great. Like I've loved his participation. And if there is kind of like a misfire on our part in terms of getting timely reviews for the work he's doing, then yeah, like I'll work on kind of reassessing my priorities to see if I can get some of that stuff into my queue. Because I certainly don't want to turn anyone away. And I totally agree with you, Walter. Like, I think it's important for us to keep those avenues well open.
Okay, so should we take this as an action item?
Yeah.
Michael, that you're going to reach out, or you're going to look at what's going on with the webhooks PRs and
Yeah,
see
I'll
if
just
that's
put an action
avenue
item.
to
I'll
up.
follow up, yeah, on the webhook PRs and just see where we're at. And if I can, I'll start doing some reviews as well. But I'm gonna need to get like better familiar with that code a little bit. So it might take me a week or two to get up to speed.
Yeah, also I can, like, depending, I might be able to help with that, Almiko. And in fact, if you want to do a joint code review, I may at some point in some previous life have been on API machinery and done some of the webhook code. So some of it might be my fault.
Okay, awesome. Then I mean, I'll do the best I can to give it my review, and yeah, things I'm confused about, I'll just ping you and be like, I don't get this.
Yeah. Also,
Right.
I hate to do it at this point, but things have moved on since we originally decided on webhooks, and at some point we should probably revisit and work out if we can do this via cell.
Ooh.
That I think if I'm not mistaken, the enhancement is still in alpha state, so we probably have a lot of chance to go back and change that design if we want to.
I mean, I think we talked about it during the design, and we can't because Cell isn't good at like dynamically filling values, and like the use case around the persistent volume label requires dynamically knowing the zones.
Or, well, yeah, in fact, you're right. I think there's an RPC call, and as soon as you're dealing with an RPC call, your cell is out. Okay, that's a point.
Okay. So Almiko will follow up with the webhook PRs. He will blame Walter. Everyone will be happy. Okay. Let's see. Do we have anything else on that topic before we move on? Okay. Chris, you want to talk about SIG
Yeah, real quickly,
security?
it's exactly what I wrote in there. We talked a bit in the past that SIG Security is doing an upcoming audit, and did we want to get Cloud Provider on there? People seemed open to that, so I reached out to them, and they've just confirmed with me that, yep, it's on the roadmap for the next audit, and there'll be more updates to come as we build out scope of what that audit will look like for Cloud Provider. The only thing I wanted to bring up is that this is the repo that I'm pointing them at, and I hope that's correct. And if it isn't, then I should correct that with them.
So I think this is maybe partially correct.
Well, like it's getting some code from KK. And so like, that's why I'm like, they're going to audit it here. I mean, that's cool.
Well, where else would you audit it? Like,
well,
in the staging repo, but like
Oh.
it doesn't matter. Like we'll just anything that comes up out of the audit, we need to change in staging so that it gets synced back here, basically.
Well, no, I think it's important to audit it from staging because that's where like the build dependencies are linked and stuff like that. So if there is like a security vulnerability linked to the base image we're using to compile, so I don't know, I'm kind of like hand waving, but like we should review it from where it's built, which is staging.
Okay, I will update him.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, I think the things we want to look at are, I kind of go the other way around, like the CCM and the credential provider. So the I would look for, there are a couple other places where CCM code comes out of, and so I would probably make sure we get at least all of the base CCM. I don't know if we care about having them look at the various cloud provider specific CCMs that we do technically own. And then there's something similar with the credential provider code.
Okay, I would need links to whatever you're referring to, like, 'cause I don't know where the credential provider code, if it's not in the staging repo, then I need to know where that is.
Yeah, I need to go back and review because the weird part with this.
I can definitely say that the cloud provider specific repos, those are out of scope for this.
Okay.
They don't
So
they don't
even
want
though
to
there's
do like the cloud provider specific code.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, it is part of CNCF, and this SIG does own it. But if that's how they feel, well, that's fine. But
yeah, they're focusing on shared code for this stuff.
fair enough.
Okay, so
We have
you do or you don't need to link him to anything. So I feel like
Well, I
there
think we
is
still
stuff
want
to
to
link to.
Yeah, there's still stuff to link to. It just we shouldn't go. It's what I'm hearing is don't bother going outside the KK repo.
Sure.
Yeah.
If you look at our community section, like in the community repo, under SIG Cloud Provider, there's like a list of code that we own. And I'll put it here.
Yep. And that's all right here. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So there is a lot of provider specific stuff, but right here under Kubernetes Cloud Provider, all the links there should be relevant.
Put that link in.
you.
Oh, okay, awesome. Thank you. It looks like that's probably the same link. Yes, thank you. Okay, great. Let's see. Do we have anything else we want to talk about on that topic? And thank you for doing this, Chris.
Yeah, +1.
All right. Any other topics to bring up? Okay. I think we are in
Oh,
good shape.
Out of
Yes.
those links, can I just ask for
Mhm.
clarification on which one has the credential manager? 'Cause
I
it's
think
in
that's
the
a
title.
I think it's missing it.
Oh, okay.
I'll add it in the agenda notes.
Thanks.
Thank you, Andrew.
Okay. Thank you all for joining. And thank you again, Andrew, for the 2018 to now. Oh my goodness, that is one of the, I would imagine this is one of the longest SIG commitments that anyone has put in. And I am very, very impressed. And I hope that you very much deserve and enjoy your retirement from SIG leadership, but also don't be a stranger, because we always love hearing your insights when you show up and you say, you should be aware of this. It's always valuable. So
Yeah. I mean, I'm hoping to still like attend and be around. I just can't like commit to like all the other duties of being a SIG lead, so I feel like I should pass it on to someone else. But yeah, I'll be around.
wonderful.
Thanks,
Great.
Andrew.
Thank you.
Right.
All right. Take care, folks.
All right, later, everybody.